Welcome to It's the Groove, the podcast that takes you under the wrapper to discover the hidden connections in the music we love. Today, Dave the intern is sweeping the floors at the warehouse, and Kelly the CEO is at the world headquarters of It's the Groove in Toronto. Hi, Kelly. How are you today?
I'm fine, Dave. How are you today?
Good. So, what are we going to do today? What's the topic of our podcast?
The topic of our podcast today is Patrice Rushen.
Yes, the noted composer, record producer, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and music director. And what's unique about Patrice is that she scaled the heights in several disciplines: jazz, R&B, as a music director, and a lifetime educator. So as we get into our program, I just want to remind our audience that one of the principles of It's the Groove is that there are artists that we may think are a one-hit wonder, and Patrice could be that person. But if we look hard enough, we will find other music they've created which is just as good, if not better, than the hit that made them famous. And hopefully by the end of today's program, you will have been inspired to check out some of her other music, and we'll play little snippets for you that she's created over the years. So with that in mind, let's shift gears to Patrice. Kelly, what was your first recollection of Patrice?
Well, my first recollection is, I grew up listening to a lot of R&B, and my first recollection of Patrice was Forget-Me-Nots. It's one of my favorite songs from childhood. I remember wanting to buy the 12-inch single as soon as I heard it, because my dad, he had a DJ, and sometimes he would have 12-inch singles. And of course, I couldn't just take his 12-inch single, so I had to get my own copy. Yeah.
So this that information may be a little unusual to our audience. I know the first time you mentioned it to me, I didn't know what you were talking about. So what's the difference? What's the difference between a single and a 12-inch single?
A single is, for radio, right? It's 3-4 minutes long. 12-inch single is a longer version of the song. It could be, and some 12-inch singles are like 6-7 minutes.
Gotcha. So that ties into my first recollection, which was the club. It was actually a combination restaurant and nightclub. If you went there at 5 or 6 o'clock at night, you had families eating dinner. In fact, my dad used to love to go there. His favorite part was the bread girl. This young girl would come by with a huge wicker basket. It would have like 10 different kinds of bread in it, and you could get whatever you want. So if you wanted to sample one of each, or if you just wanted, a handful of one, my dad's favorite was the coconut muffins. He always had to get a couple of the coconut muffins. But around 9, the vibe completely changed, because on the other side of the house, they had a DJ spinning records. And it became a real disco scene. Young people dressed to impress would descend on the club and dance into the wee hours. And I remember going there, and of course, I wouldn't dance every dance, and only the ones where I really felt the groove. But I vividly recall just waiting to hear a certain special song that was why I was there, right? So maybe you remember this one. Yeah, that's the one you're talking about, right?
Yep. Definitely has a groove to it, right?
That's it. That was it. And that's the thing, right? I remember, like I said, I wouldn't dance to all the songs, and it had to be something that I really felt, but that was absolutely the one that I was interested in. But, as we've heard, Patrice actually, even before that, had a unique and diverse career. In fact, some people may not be aware that she worked with Prince on his debut album. Now, unfortunately, not all artists are as transparent as they should be, I guess, and crediting. But I have found out that yes, she did work. Not even sure she played on the album, but I know that she helped him set up the keyboards. Prince was one of those guys that he had to play every instrument on the song. But she was definitely involved and helped him out and got some of that music going. So anyway, I guess there was a little bit of a more than professional attachment as well, because Prince wrote not one but two songs for her and about her, and I guess that's kind of how he rolled. If he liked you, I guess he'd write a song about you or whatever. The first one, take a listen to this one. All right. So you recognize that one, right?
Yep, I do.
And that ended up actually being Prince's first hit. So he recorded one other one for her, and again about her. And I'm going to play a little different version. So this is not Prince you're going to hear next, but I'm sure you're going to recognize the song.
Chaka 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 Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, that's all I wanna do. Chaka Khan, let me rock it, Chaka Khan. Let me rock it, let me feel for you. Chaka Khan, what you tell me what you wanna do? Do you feel for me the way I feel for you? Chaka Khan, let me tell you what I wanna do. I wanna love you, wanna hug you, wanna squeeze you too. And let me take it in my arms, let me feel you with my charm, Chaka. Cause you know that I'm the one that keep you warm, Chaka. I make it more than just a physical dream. I wanna rock you, Chaka, baby, cause you make me wanna scream. Let me rock it, rock it.
All right, the audience can't see, but I definitely see you vibing right there in your chair, doing a little chair dancing.
Of course, you can't sit still with that song.
So, of course, that became a big hit, a huge hit for Shaka Khan. Prince actually did release that, and I didn't play the version because it's not nearly as good. But
No,
obviously, yeah, obviously,
no.
Shaka figured out how to make it work.
It was like the song was written for her, you know.
Yeah,
Shaka just, took it to a whole new level.
she sure did, and that's really probably one of the favorite songs of not just for Shaka, but for all of It's the Groove. Anyway, so here's the question for you. Patrice, had access to those songs. She could have recorded them, but she didn't. Why do you think she didn't?
Maybe she didn't feel comfortable recording the songs, singing the lyrics. Maybe just didn't feel the song suited her. Maybe she thought the songs were actually be better for Prince. I remember I Want to Be Your Lover was probably one of my first introductions to Prince. So she was probably right about that one, at least.
Yeah, that's an interesting take that she may have stepped aside to allow the light to shine on Prince. I liken it to you can be the songwriter and you get credit for it, and that's great. But yeah, if you're the person singing it and performing it and whatever, the spotlight's really shining on you. It reminds me of we've talked about this before, Michael Jackson and Rod Temperton. And everyone knows who Michael Jackson is, and only the really savvy music people know who Rod Temperton was. But, Rod was the guy that wrote basically half of the Off the Wall album and half the Thriller album, including both title tracks, So who's the genius? But anyway, so
Right.
maybe you're right. Maybe she stepped aside to the light would, spotlight would shine on Prince.
Yeah, I think with Rod, though, he felt more comfortable as a songwriter and less comfortable as a performer. It would have been a shame if Prince had felt that way,
Right. Yeah. It does take a certain, say maybe ego or something, right, to get out in front of the mic and actually perform. And Prince had that in spades, obviously. Reminds me, Rod was a performer. He was part of Heatwave.
Right.
And I just saw this thing the other day. I meant to share it with you. But it's, it was like, if you look at Rod performing on some of the early music videos with Heatwave, he kind of looks like he doesn't belong there, He looks
He
like
looks out of yeah, exactly. Like he doesn't belong there. Yeah,
right,
out of
right,
place.
right.
Right.
Yeah. Somebody said he looked like the uncle that was chaperoning, his nephews or something.
Right.
All right. So anyway, back to Patrice. So one of the interesting things was that, her background and her early records, she cut 3 records with a jazz label. So, she grew up in a music household where they listened to music all the time. And her parents made sure that she got piano lessons, and she played piano from a very early age, and she played consistently until she got into high school. And the only reason why she didn't play in high school, she still played in high school, but she picked up the flute as well because it's hard to march with the piano. So she wanted to be in the marching band, and she saw all these kids carrying cases. She wanted a case, and of course that's where they have the trumpets and saxes and things like that. So she picked up flute. And was one of those kids, I can kind of relate to this because I was kind of like one of those kids always hanging around the band room. And the band director of her school, of her high school, was friends with a young aspiring musician who was putting together a band. And that band didn't have a place to practice. So the school band director offered him, said, hey, come in after school and I'll unlock the multi-purpose room and you can practice in there. So the band kids would literally help this, fledgling band with their instruments get, set up into the room, and then they'd hang around and listen to them practice. So near the end of the school year, the band wasn't making any money. They hadn't really hit it big yet. And so they went to the band director and said, look, we don't have any money to pay rent, for the facility, but how about if we play at your prom? So this band played for Patrice Rushen's high school prom. The young musician was a fellow by the name of Maurice White. Yes, that's Maurice White. of Earth, Wind, and Fire fame, and the band was Earth, Wind, and Fire.
That's
So
incredible.
can you imagine that, having Earth, Wind, and Fire play at your prom?
No, I could not. It would be like me meeting Duran Duran in 1981 or something like that, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so Patrice was very accomplished as a pianist, and played in a combo. You know, while she was still in high school, they won like a regional competition that then the next step, they got to perform at the Monterey Jazz Fest. And so they won that element there too at the Monterey Jazz Fest, and she was offered a record deal. And you know, obviously, this is a little bit different kind of music from what she became known for, but this is an example of one of her jazz tunes from one of her first albums. It's a song called "Stepping Stones." So I know that you kind of enjoy some smooth jazz. What do you think of that one?
I really liked it. I can see myself chilling on a lazy summer afternoon listening to that.
You know, I never knew about that stuff. I never knew of anything that she did before the Straight from the Heart album. But as we were kind of doing some research for this program, I found that. I'm like, wow, I really do like that. So that was kind of interesting. While she was still with that label, she did shift a little bit into funk, and here's an example of that's called "The Hump." Here's the hump.
Got to get over the high, y'all. Got to try. Yeah, you got to get over the high, y'all. Got to try before you make it high.
All right, I see you grooving again.
Yep. Yep. I love that bass.
Yeah, isn't that funky? That's really
Hmm.
that's pretty cool. So that basically, I'm not sure exactly the steps involved, but I think she realized that she wanted to branch out, get a little bit more into popular music and away from jazz. Back in the '70s, jazz wasn't quite as big as it got to be later on, and so I think she wanted to kind of go with the flow and moved over to a different label that was going to allow her to experiment a little bit. I found this one, and it's become one of my favorite Patrice songs, and it's off the Patrice album, and it's called "When I Found You."
I found love
Okay, I'm going to cut that one off now. Encourage you to go back and check that one out later on. That's a pretty cool one. Also, off the same Patrice album is a little different song called Music of the Earth. So anyway, her next album after that was actually where she started to kind of get into, I think, more popular realm, and that was the album called Pizzazz. So I'm sure you've heard of this one. So do you remember that one?
Yeah, I was just grooving to that one. That's another gem from my childhood. We don't have to talk. We can just listen to music. It's okay.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was her first kind of breakthrough hit, and it was definitely, as you can tell from that one, it was definitely a disco number. So that brings us to Straight from the Heart, and when we get there, I want to kind of mention interesting story that goes back to Forget Me Nots, and that's that you mentioned bass. So one of the bass players that he played on that last tune, and he certainly played on the Straight from the Heart album, is a guy by the name of Freddie Washington. And Freddie Washington, at the time, this is late '70s, was an LA based bass player. I'm sorry, a Bay Area based bass player that wanted to relocate to LA, and he didn't have a place to stay. So he asked Patrice if he could stay with her family. So he and Patrice literally, I mean, they'd spend all their time together, and she would tell the story. If they had a gig, they had a gig. If they didn't, they were practicing. And whenever they practiced, they would always record what they were playing, even if it was just goofing around. And so, one day Freddie comes up with this pretty cool bass line, and they're like, "Hey, stop the tape! Let's rewind that. What did you do? That sounded really good." And that ended up being the bass line that was kind of the foundation of Forget Me Nots. So, another interesting little sidelight on that was that at the time, the label didn't think that was going to be a big song. And so they thought it was going to be good. They liked it. And they thought it was going to be good, but the label wasn't really going to support it. So they went to the club and they, were friendly with the DJ, and they said, "Hey, look, do us a favor. You got the big disco songs on there, maybe I don't know, Bee Gees or Michael Jackson, whatever, whatever really gets people onto the dance floor. And as soon as you get done with that set, put this one on. And if people leave the dance floor, then we'll know that it's not going to work." So they did. And what they found was that, nobody left the dance floor. They stayed on because they loved hearing that Forget Me Nots. And that was kind of their research. And then what they did was they self-promoted. So they basically took some of their own cash and used that to help support the song and to promote it and to get it out there. And it wasn't until the label saw the traction that they actually got behind it and then started to support it. So it always gets me thinking about, all the great music that maybe we missed because some record executive just didn't get it, and didn't understand what was really going to be good. And so consequently, we never heard it. So a couple others that I just wanted to touch base on. And this is one that you kind of introduced to me, Al. I was not a big record guy back in the day, and I generally had to have, like at least 3 songs that I liked that I'd already heard before I'd go out and buy the album.
Mm-hmm.
But Forget Me Nots is so good. I just went out and bought the album with just knowing that one, right? But still, I guess maybe I didn't listen to as much as I should have, and it was a couple years ago. And we're talking about Patrice, and you said, "Hey, you ought to listen to this one."
Can recall a certain magic in your eyes. Still, each time that you appear, a kiss so passionate it has me mesmerized. I'm more in love each time that you are near. Whoa. Starlight, star bright, reflections near or far, just like the brightest star. Yeah. Sweet things you do set my heart aglow. I want you to know they remind me I'm not looking for in love with you, darling. Remind me, yeah, yeah. I'm not looking for in love with you, darling.
So remind me, what's the name of that song?
I think it's called "You Remind Me." I could be wrong.
No, remind me, what's the name of the song?
All right, Dave.
So yeah, and after you kind of refreshed that in my brain, that became a real earworm for me. It's still one of my most played songs because it's just, I don't know, it's just really a great number. Another one that I got a kick out of. Sometimes I get a kick out of the stuff that's a little bit wacky. Like, for example, artists that mention their own, band's name in the song, and stuff like that. So this one is called Number One. And the backstory on there is it's called Number One because it was the very first song that they started working on for this album, and they just never changed the name. So here we go, a couple of bars of Number One. All right, I'd love to play the whole rest of the song, but I encourage you to go back and listen to it. There are some incredible keyboard parts, especially as you get later on in the song, and that just goes to her amazing skill on the keys. And so she's a tremendously talented piano player, and that really comes across on this one. So make sure you listen to that one.
Yeah,
Last
she's
one
definitely. Oops, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just gonna say she's definitely an underrated artist, and we encourage you to listen to everything that she has produced because there are some hidden gems in there.
On the first run through of preparing for this episode, I think I picked out 30 songs, and then I realized now that's not going to work. So I cut it down to like I don't know 20, and then finally down to whatever we have here, about a dozen, I guess. So you're right. There's a lot of good ones. The last one we're just going to highlight briefly for you is also off of Straight from the Heart, and it's called Breakout. That's another good disco number. In fact, that was the second single off the Straight from the Heart album. Yeah. So, anything else that you want to tell us about Patrice?
No, just make sure that you listen to her catalog of music because, like I said, you'll find a lot of gems there that you unfortunately missed because she was quite underrated as an artist.
She was nominated for 2 Grammys in '83, one for Number One for instrumental, and also for Forget Me Nots. Didn't win either one. Probably should have, but there are a lot of
Yeah,
good songs in that time of year. In fact,
that's true.
we oftentimes say that this is kind of the golden age of pop music, and she was one of the brightest stars. She kind of fell off of the radar a little bit, but ended up fulfilling kind of her life's dream, because one of the things that she wanted to do when she was still a child is she wanted to write for film and TV, and she ended up having a fairly interesting career doing some writing, and was involved in a number of different projects. And then she also was selected as the musical director for the Grammys in 2004, 2005, and 2006, breaking the glass ceiling, being the first woman to be asked to be the musical director for the Grammys. It's got to be quite a recognition when you're directing the show that's awarding the awards for the best performances, and you're the person that's behind the scenes doing that. Really a pretty terrific thing. So anyway, that's a little bit about Patrice. As we said before, a lot of great music, and we hope that you take the opportunity to go back and listen to some of it. And with that, any other closing comments?
Just be sure to check us out the next time, because we have a really interesting episode coming up soon. Right, Dave?
Stay tuned for our next episode. And until then, remember, it's not the beat, it's the groove. Thanks for listening.